Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Episode 2 of Superman and Lois just finished airing on the CW, and I'm here to give you guys my review. First, I'm going to give you guys a spoiler-free review, giving you the good and the bad on my thoughts of the episode, and then I'll be giving a little bit of a spoiler talk at the end of the video, and I'll give a warning beforehand. So the first thing I want to talk about is the good of the episode. I thought this episode had great character development, especially for the character Lois. I think that they did a great job in setting up the future of her and her character. They had a lot of great plot points in this episode alone that really advanced her character in ways that I never actually thought of coming off of that first episode. I really thought that they did a great job in just showing her conflict, because obviously, as we know from the last episode, she has a lot of conflict with the two other parents in the episode. Well, just one pair of parents, but she has conflict with them. She has opposing political views and political ideas than those set of parents, and I feel like it's a great way to kind of make her the center of the show. Obviously, the show is about Superman, but the title is Superman and Lois, so I expect a lot from both of the characters. And last episode, obviously, we got a lot of backstory and history, and we also got a lot about what Superman wants to do as a dad, what Clark Kent wants to do as a dad. Now, kind of going off of just Lois's character as a whole, I think we can talk about John. So John is the blonde hair kid, the blonde twin, if you guys didn't know. I didn't know his name until I actually looked it up on Google right before the episode started. But I thought what was super cool in this episode was that we found parallels between John and Lois, and we found parallels between Jordan and Clark. So what I'm talking about here is, in this episode, we get a lot more in depth into what Lois had to give up when coming to Smallville and kind of living the life that Clark Kent wanted. I think that John relates the same way, because obviously he had to leave his girlfriend, he had to leave him being the starting team captain, football, quarterback player, whatever. They both had to lose a lot and leave a lot behind so that they could succeed. And obviously Lois's case, it was her husband. He's the one who wanted to move to make their family better. He wanted his family to be more cohesive and glued together so they could stick together in the long run. And obviously John wanted to help his brother Jordan succeed, because obviously Jordan wouldn't be able to succeed in a city like Metropolis because of how big and crowded it is. In Smallville, he actually has space to learn his powers and kind of understand what he needs to do. In this episode, we also get a lot of character development for Jordan. Now, I didn't realize this until the end of the episode when I kind of was taking notes and looking back as to what happened in the episode. I honestly, in the moment, didn't really think we had that much exposition for Jordan, but it turns out we did, but it was a lot more subtle than you would think. Jordan isn't in this episode for as much time as I honestly wanted him to be, because I felt like this episode should have focused more on the twins. But again, I'm super glad that they focused on Lois, but I do think that they did a great job by focusing on Jordan just enough, because they gave us enough acceleration in his character and his character arc so that we could finally get hints as to what's going on with him, but he's not taking away from the other main aspects of the story, which in this episode was mostly just Lois. The next thing I want to talk about was basically just the internal family conflict that's happening. Now, it's not from any of the four family members, it's actually from another outside source that's part of the family. I'm not going to exactly say who, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler part of the video, but it is a pretty big deal in my opinion, because this character is super important to the entirety of the storyline. He had a prominent role in the previous episode, and I just think overall, I mean, you guys can probably guess who it is by the way I'm saying it. And I like the direction that they're going in with this character, because it's not just the basic way they can go about that certain type of character. They're actually using him in the most unique way possible. And again, I'm going to be mentioning his name and stuff in the spoiler part of the video. I just don't want to spoil it for you guys who haven't watched it yet. I thought this episode had pretty solid action sequences. Now, it wasn't anything crazy, but the CGI was pretty improved from the previous episode, and I honestly really liked that. Now, there was only maybe one action scene, or one main action sequence, because the second one was only like 30 seconds when it was actually between Superman and... Now, personally, I like the first action sequence. I just found the action sequences in this episode to be a little bit dull, but they were still super entertaining. So now I want to get to the bad. This episode had only a few bad things, just like the first episode. Now, one of the biggest things is that now it's starting to kind of culminate into just a regular teen show. What I mean like that is, In this episode, we finally start to get more of their high school experience. Now, we don't get crazy amounts of minutes of it, but we still get to see parts of it. We still get to see partially what it's like for John to be in high school without his brother Jordan. Now, one of the biggest things that kind of happens in this episode is that the football team doesn't like John. This is a big factor because obviously it's another thing that John has to put on his plate, because even though he's already leaving Metropolis, he's already leaving his girlfriend, he's already leaving his spot as the star quarterback at a school, and now he's basically getting bullied in school to a certain extent. One thing that I noticed when they started showing the high school aspects of the episode was that it was super similar to All American. Now, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of All American. I watched the first season and I haven't watched the second one or the third one that's actually airing right now, and the high school sequences in this episode started to show a lot of resemblance to All American. Now, obviously that makes sense. They're both made by the CW, so obviously they're going to resemble the same things. Now, obviously that's not too bad of a thing because All American isn't that bad, but I just feel like they should have done something a lot more unique. Going with that All American flow, it just had a lot of cheesy dialogue and it didn't really feel like there was enough things hitting for me on any cylinders. I just didn't really feel the moment as much as I would sequences with Lois. And at the end of the episode, we get some crazy stuff with Lois. Now, she seems to actually stand up for herself, and it should have been such a powerful moment, but it just ended up being super lame because of the way they did the camera work. Now, quickly, I want to go back to the school conflict. I don't think this is that big of a deal, but it was super predictable as to what was going to happen at the end of each school sequence. Now, obviously, it's not that big of a deal when it comes to the long run, but if they're going to keep doing this in all these episodes, I am going to be very disappointed. And yeah, guys, so now I'm going to be getting into the spoiler talk part of this video. If you guys want to skip to my final take, it'll be somewhere on the bar down here. So that's going to be when I give my final consensus of the episode. So one of my favorite things about this episode was not only the Black Superman part, which I'll touch on a little bit later, but I thought it was super cool that Lex Luthor used a robot double when he was attacking the army headquarters. He did this so that he basically wouldn't have to sacrifice his own body, and he gave the little pendant to the army general, and it was a black Superman logo, and on the back it said hell. Now, what I think his motive was with giving him this pendant / necklace thing was to kind of see if he could remember what he went through on a different Earth. Now, before I move on to talk about the black suit Superman, I want to mention how Jordan finds out that he's not going to be the next Superman. He finds out that his powers aren't like fully developed like his dad's, and that he's kind of just basically unique. He has slight powers, but he's not like a full-blown Superman type of hero. Glad they cleared that up because I don't think anyone is ready for that in this show, or at least this season of the show, where his character isn't nearly as developed as we'd want him to be when he's becoming the next Superman. I also thought that it was pretty cool that in the first episode, Jordan is the one that wanted to find out why he saved his brother and how he didn't get hurt or his brother didn't get hurt. But in this episode, John is the one that wants to help Jordan kind of find out how to use his powers more. Even though John has a lot going on in his life, he's still willing to put in time and sacrifice his own time to help his brother, and I thought that was super cool, and I think that's something worth mentioning because I feel like that's going to be something that is super important in the long run of this show and the character arcs for both of the twins. In my opinion, one of the most important moments in this episode is when Lois's dad talks to Clark Kent outside of their house in Smallville, and he says, like, you're the one who made Lois drop everything in her life to make her come live with you, and she did the same thing to John and his kids. And then when Lois's dad found out that Clark Kent told his kids that he's Superman, he said it's going to ruin their lives. And I feel like this is going to be really big, not only because Lex Luthor gave him the necklace, and just the sergeant the general is starting to find out stuff about Superman and Clark Kent in general, and it's kind of getting to the point where I'm kind of thinking that the general is going to start thinking Superman is kind of sus, and maybe he's going to turn the army on Superman. Now, I don't think that's going to work, as we saw in that flashback scene. I thought that was worth mentioning because I feel like that can be something super important later on in this series, as the general might slowly turn against Superman, even though it's his daughter's husband. I want to quickly head all the way back to what I was talking about before about Lois. So at the end of the episode, Lois quits her job at the planet, whatever, the global planet, whatever the news place is called, and she quits her job there, and because of Edge, and her and Edge now have this beef because in the middle of the episode she was at that public forum thing, and she was kind of arguing against Edge, and he gave a really generic and broad response, and I feel like that kind of set off tension between those two. Now, obviously she already had tension with his political beliefs, but I thought it was super cool that they're now really showing them kind of go head to head, and this one one's more of a psychological than physical battle, whereas with Superman and Lex Luthor, we're seeing a physical battle. Now, again, that's one of my favorite things about this episode in general, is just how much character development we got for Lois in this short amount of time. And the final thing I want to talk about in the spoiler section of this video is, again, the Black Superman. So I think it was super cool that we got to see the Black Superman. Obviously, I don't have much to say about him because we only saw like 2 or 3 seconds of him on screen, but we know he exists, and we know that is why Lex Luthor is super afraid of the Superman on the normal Earth, and that's why he's trying to warn the General to kind of stop helping Superman and try to help defeat Superman. Alright, so now that the spoiler talk of this episode is done, it's time to give you guys my final take on this episode of Superman and Lois. And overall, I think it was great. I think it was super well done, just the way they excelled the character of Lois in one episode in such a short amount of time. Just as the last episode, this one was pretty awesome, even though it was a little bit cheesy at times. I still recommend that you check it out. And yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to drop a like rating down below. Share with your friends if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new around here and you enjoy this content. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.